brand new episode here on 1950's Farm. So what are we doing today? Well, as you can see, we've mowed this grass and we've rode it up. Blimey, that was posh, wasn't it? This grass, ooh, la-di-da. We've cut this grass and we have tedded and rode it, and we're now out with the baler. I forgot me roots there for a second. And we're out now in the field baling it. I was just kind of remembering a few things as I was going round, and the deers, when they come out of the woods, remind me because a lot of the fields that we had on the farm that I worked on was around certainly sort of let me think. So some of the fields around the Wisbech area were always in and around big woods. We had some fields on the way to Bourne, and anyone that lives local to the sort of Spalding area will know where I'm talking about. And we had a couple of fields for a few years. It was on rented land, that was, and near Bourne Woods. But as I say, I've been sort of busy in this field, and this field sort of kind of reminds me of a field that I had quite a I don't know about scary incident. It certainly could have ended a lot different. Had I or it been a few seconds earlier or a minute or so earlier, it as I say, could have ended very differently. But so to put you kind of in some sort of into the picture, as the saying is. So when we were in autumn and we were busy on the land, usually by autumn time I was either ploughing or drilling. That was literally all I was doing. If we had one sort of main drillman who that was his job, the same way that ploughing was my job. We had someone whose job was drilling, we had someone whose job was spraying, cultivating, etc, etc, etc. The thing is that every one of us on the arable side had a drill, had a cultivator, had a plough, and then we could go off and help each other out to get the work done, you see. And it would be Adrian, the farm manager, that would decide as and when you went and helped out, and when you sort of remained on your own job, sort of thing. And it's this particular, I think I'd been there a little while, and on the Monday I had normal working hours. Well, on the Monday Adrian came to me and said talks of being I can't remember, it was either late October or early November, and he came to me and said it talks of really severe frosts overnight, and we're going to get some rain today, and I think the rain might be significant enough to stop you from working, but there's going to be some really severe frosts over the next few nights, and we'd had a reasonably wet autumn anyway, hence the reason why we were still working, as I say, at sort of flat out at that time of the year. It wasn't sort of so uncommon, but usually by the end of October, November, we were getting somewhere. And so he said to me, he said, like, go home, go to bed, and then about 1 o'clock in the morning, sort of tomorrow morning, if he could come back and carry on, that'd be brilliant, because the frost will be on the ground will be hard, you'll be able to carry on. So I was like, yeah, okay, fair enough. And that was not unusual for us to do that. If we had sort of drilling that needed doing and it was too wet in the daytime, or whatever, then we would come back and do it overnight. At the end of the day, while the weather can certainly have a big part in affecting us, as Adrian's sort of saying was, there's always two halves to every day. There's the day and there's the night, and it doesn't matter in which half of that day you get the work done, as long as you get the work done. And for us to sort of be asked to go overnight was not unusual, and so I the missus that I was with at the time, I ring her up and I say, I'm coming home, and no, that's right. So she rings me and says, how are you getting on? When are you are you coming home normal time? And I said, why? She goes, oh, no real reason, just want to know. And I sort of kind of felt that was a bit suspicious. And having just been told that I could now go home, I went, no. I said, I'm working till about 9 tonight. So she was like, okay. She goes, am I feeding you or are they feeding you? So I said, no, I'd assume they are feeding me because they haven't said nothing about going home from a tea. So she's like, okay, fair enough. So she said, I'll see you at 9 then. So I said, okay. I said, fair, sort of see you then. She went, okay, bye. So she hangs up, and I'm thinking, that's a bit weird. She's never really rings and says, oh, I'm just, sort of trying to, and I thought, well, I'm now going home anyway, so, it'll be interesting to see what I find when I get back, you see. So, anyway, decided. So, from where I worked, from where I lived, I had to go past my parents' house. And I thought, well, I'll call in and see Mum and Dad. I thought, give it half hour, and then I'll go home, because I'd kind of had, I'd kind of had suspicions, sort of a bit before this. Just sometimes, you get a feeling something wasn't right. And anyway, I goes to my mum and my dad's house, and have a cup of tea and what have you. And they say, oh, like, you're finished early. Yeah, I got to go back tonight at 1 o'clock. I said, so I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna, sit with Em for a bit, and then I'm gonna go to bed, like. And she was like, oh, she goes, Emma's at home today. So I said, yeah, she's at home today. So she goes, okay, fair enough. So anyway, leaves, goes home, sort of, gets home. There's an unusual car down the street about 2 houses away from our house. So I'm kind of, and I'm one of these, because as I've said before, I like writing and I write stories, and I have an incredible ability to walk onto or anywhere that's familiar to me and notice straight away if anything has changed. And as I say, this car was new. It was a car I'd never seen down the road before, and not even sort of calling at one of the houses, so I'm like, okay. So anyway, I goes to walk in. There's a key in the door, which obviously stops me from getting in. And I've done it really quietly, so I thought, not a problem. What I'll do is I'll go through the gate, I'll go around the back, I'll go through the back door. The back door was locked, but the key was, always somewhere else. So I thought, she won't have been that clever. So I goes around the back, goes in through the back door, and the house is sort of quite quiet. Normally the TV would be on, or the radio would be blaring, or something like that would be happening. And this was before we'd had our little boy. So normally the music was either quite loud or the TV would be on sort of relatively loud, because she'd be sort of wanting to hear it from all over the house, sort of thing. Like, it's very, very quiet. So I thought, for what the hell's going on. And then I could hear really, really strange noises coming from upstairs, which was what I was expecting. So I was like, okay. I thought, all right. calm down, son. You don't need to be doing nothing silly here, boy. And so I goes upstairs, opens the bedroom door, no one in there. It's like, oh. And then I hear a voice, who's that? And I went, it's me. I said, where are you? She goes, I'm in the bath. I said, oh, okay. So I said, can I come in? She's like, well, yeah. So I goes in. So I says, who's in here with you? So she went, hey? I said, who's in here with you? She went, no one, why? I said, strange car outside. I said, and I heard strange noises coming from here. She went, yeah, there's no one in here. I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. She goes, anyway, what are you doing home? You told me you was working till 9. I said, yeah, because I said I was a bit, anyway. So a little bit of a row ensued because, obviously she now realises that, I'd sort of kind of thought the worst. And, but it was okay, yeah. Anyway, goes off to bed. So I goes to bed, as I say, and that night, because that's nothing really to do with the incident, what I'm about to tell you, but that was sort of like the lead up to, so that's on my mind. I've got other things on my mind as well, and sort of thinking about lots of things, and of course, I'm at work now. It's about 3 in the morning. I'm in the field where I'm sort of due to be, and I sort of gets to work as well and realises I'm the only one that's been asked to go in, at silly o'clock, which annoyed me a little bit because I thought we were all, sort of be going in, we'd be drilling, we'd be, sort of cultivating and ploughing and, what have you, and that's how I was ploughing. So gets to 3 o'clock, and I thought I'll have, because normally in the morning I'd start work usually about 7, and by about 9, half 9, I'd have a cup of tea and a sandwich or whatever. And so I thought I'll have a cup of tea, and I'll have. I think I had like I took fruit with me. I think I was feeling particularly healthy that day, and or that night. And I'm having a cup of tea, and it's pitch black, and I can't really see anything. And I can see the odd house here and there has got a light on, but other than that, there's not much happening. Like it's the middle of the bloody night. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, sort of thing. So. I have my cup of tea, I eat my apple, and I think, I thought I could do with a pee. So now the Challenger, I had an E-Series Challenger, and it had a little bit like the modern cars, really. So the Challenger knew if you had your lights on, it kind of guessed that it was probably night time and dark. So I'm sitting in the middle of the field now, because we're not far from because I'm not far from houses. When I stop for my break, I turn my lights off. And I did sort of also stop sort of the furthest away from the houses that I could, so that I wasn't sort of waking no one up or whatever. Because obviously I had my radio and that on, and so I'd sort of stopped the furthest away from the house, and or houses, and so I was, sort of had my cup of tea, had my, my apple and what have you, and sort of sat there for a little bit, and as it happened, Emma had been texting me because she couldn't sleep, and I thought, I need a wee. And I was up near the forest, near the woods. I was up near Bourne Woods, and I was thinking. I thought, well, it's the middle of the night. I don't need to wander too far from the tractor, because normally in the daytime, like you sort of find a dike or sort of, so you could disappear a little bit out of view. And I thought, it's the middle of the night, I don't need to thingy. So I opened my door. Well, as soon as I opened my door, because the engine's now off, but I've had my lights on, the tractor thinks it's night time and I'm leaving the tractor. So what it does is, obviously, all the lights come on so that I can sort of see to walk away from the vehicle and to lock it and everything else. But obviously the keys were in the ignition. But as soon as I opened the door, the lights used to come on. So the lights have opened. I'm not really taking too much notice of stuff that's going on around me. I sort of open the door, turn, close the door. I'm standing on the platform, so there's like a rail between me and the ground, sort of thing, like the the safety rail. And I turn round, and I had that feeling, like when I had my back to the sort of outside world, if you like, while I was closing the door, I had a feeling I was being watched. And even when I was in the tractor, I had this kind of uneasy kind of like, it just, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but I kind of felt like someone was looking at me, and they were watching me. And as I say, I'd kind of sort of shrugged it off as because again, being a writer, I have a very overactive imagination. I can, I can make absolutely, sort of something out of nothing. And and so I'm, kind of like got this fear anyway. Sort of shake it off, think, stop being a wally, get out and just go to the toilet, will you? And so I've closed the door. Well, as I've turned round, and as I say, I'm closing the door, and I've still got this feeling. I've turned round, and I could have swore I saw something move across. So the woods would have been probably no more than about, I don't know, 500 meters away, something like that. They were a little way from me, but they weren't a long way from me. And so I'm kind of, sort of, and I was, nah, don't be silly, James, don't be silly. I didn't hear anything. I just thought I saw something. Anyway, I'm having a pee, and I sort of finish. I get back on my steps, and I turned round as I was coming up the steps, just to the right of me. I'd sort of turned slightly to the right because something green caught my eye. And so I've turned to the right slightly to kind of try and get a better look. Well, my cab lights at this point have gone off, so I've gone into the tractor and I've turned the ignition on, but didn't start the engine. I just turned the ignition on, and the lights obviously come straight back on. And I then sort of stepped backwards out of the cab because I was sort of kind of leaning in front ways, stepped backwards out of the cab, turned again to the right, and there was this massive, and I mean at that moment it felt like this massive, huge black cat was staring at me, like, and I don't mean domestic animal cat, I mean like sort of a similar shape to probably a sort of 2 to maybe 3-year-old sort of lion that you or tiger or whatever that you see on the sort of David Attenborough programs, and and we're just looking at each other, and the cab door's open because I'm not stupid enough to close it, and I gets back. I kind of steps so as I'm behind the door because I thought if it leaps, like, I need to be in and shutting that door because I'm fairly certain it would rip me to pieces. So I'm kind of like, I'm like, I was sort of freaked out, and I gets back in the cab. Anyway, sort of it goes off in towards the woods. And I'm sort of working away, and I'm, and I was like, my whole heart was going, which is not good for me, but my whole heart was going, and I was thinking like, shit, and I thought, damn it, I should have taken a picture, I can be all big and brave now it ain't there, do you know what I mean? But when it was there, I was not thinking pictures or getting out and petting the bloody thing, I was kind of thinking, Jesus, this thing's about to rip my head off my shoulders. So I'm kind of, and I've just realised actually that I did just swear then, so I distinctly apologise. I didn't mean that to slip out. So forgive me. So I'm kind of, I've got back in, like, as I say, and I'm sort of working away, and the rest of the evening, the night's breaks and what have you else, I had on the move. I didn't stop. And while I was sort of, going up and down, and the day was just sort of, you could tell that night was, a few hours from ending, because the sky was beginning to change a little bit. And I suddenly, I sort of kind of remembered. I thought, this tractor has CCTV on it. Like all of our machinery had CCTV on it. I thought, like because we used to get a works phone. And I thought from the works phone, because all of that sort of stuff was all all I had to do was click an app, and within a second, I could see where all the tractors were, and what have you. So I've gone onto the phone and I've clicked this app, and I'm looking, and when I was and found the time, the thingy, like when I sort of went to the loo, and the lights were still on the tractor at this point. And I'm, sort of going about my business. And this cat, unbeknown to me, walks not all that far from behind me. So it's come from my left and ended up on my right. And it's kind of walked past me, its head looking at me the whole time. And it's kind of trotted by, got a little bit past the tractor, and then sort of just past the headstock of the plough, and then sort of kind of stopped. It then backed up a few paces, and just stood there. And I've sort of finished my business. I'm sort of getting up onto the tractor, and because at this point the green catches my eye, the green of his eyes catches, or her eyes, because it could have been a female one, catches my eyes, and that's when I sort of obviously noticed it for the first time. But what was really worrying was the fact that not all that far from me, it walked behind me, and I didn't even hear it. I didn't even see it. It's kind of, so like I say, it was kind of a really lucky escape. And as I said, the forest over there just made me sort of kind of think of it, because it's a similar type field, really. So you had the forest. I mean, the forest would have gone the full length down to the road, and so would this field. It was one of our bigger fields, like, that we hired, and it would have gone. So there was like sort of a tree area that way, that side, and it would be all the way along. Then our field would have. So just for example, like where the trees just to the left there end, the field then sort of L-shaped down there, and then on the back of that, so like on the back of the sort of ploughed field that you can see there, was then the rest of the trees, and they went down the other side, the left-hand side of that field as well, and then round the back, and then they came all the way back up the other side. So you were kind of, but only sort of halfway, or maybe a quarter of the way. And then there were some houses, and then the trees kind of sort of carried on again. And yeah, as I say, just sort of like when I was cutting the grass in here, it reminded me of it, and I was like, geez, yeah, I remember that happening. And because I, sort of went home, because I think I left off at about 9 in the morning. The sun was up, and the frost was sort of melting, and the ground was going back to being quite sort of wet and tacky, and sort of, the Challenger was managing it fine, but there was no point through the day we're hitting a wet spot somewhere, because you can't always see them, and then getting stuck or starting to make a mess of it. So the decision we'd sort of made the day before was that just for that week, I'd work the frost, so I'd work at night, and because I was ploughing land, getting it ready for drilling, so it needed doing. It wasn't a case of that I could just leave it, sort of thing. It needed doing, so that's what I'd sort of done. But yeah, I don't remember that incident very well, and I think it could have ended so differently. It. And the thing is, it's like, although that it definitely happened, and I know it happened, because like sometimes, like when I go to get my little boy and that from his mum's and that, very very occasionally she'll sort of say, "Oh, do you remember?" And it's like, yeah, and so it's. But I do sort of think to myself, Jesus, that could have ended so differently. If that cat had felt, threatened in any way. I don't know what sort of cat it was, and we showed the videos to, or the farm showed the video to, a few people, and I never really did sort of find out what sort of cat it was. I mean, I was sort of asked my opinion, and I'm thinking, sort of a panther, puma, something like that, But do they live in this country? I don't know. Could they have escaped from a zoo or something some way? Yeah, most probably. I would have thought it would have been something that would have been all over the news, but could someone have imported it and released it? Yeah, again, most probably. But I don't know. But as I say, it was a biggish cat. Like, it wasn't, the size of a sort of a fully grown tiger or a lioness or anything like that. It wasn't the sort of fully, but I bet it was a couple of years old, unless for the species of cat it was. That was its, sort of full adult size. Maybe it was just naturally, it's a smaller cat compared to the big cats that I've sort of named there. But yeah, I don't know. Like I say, it's a very funny. Well, not funny, but it's sort of one of those fond memories that I, sort of have from working, and I mean, same field, a different year, same field, working late one night. I was, and because the field was big enough to work it either sort of across or up and down, like it was really long and it was really wide, so you could work it either way, and I remember one night. Well, I wasn't working nights, but I, sort of working the day as the summertime. We hadn't long combined it, that field, and as I say, there was like a bit of an L, and I got to that field probably about 1 in the morning, and I was due to finish work at 2. So I got to that field at 1 in the morning, or probably about half 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And I thought what I'd do is I'll get the headlands done, and then because what we used to do was we used to drive around the tram lines with the cultivator down, and then that would be our in and out. So that would sort of give us our mark to lift in and out, and then we knew we had enough room on the end to turn around without actually screwing and sort of making a mess of the headland. It was kind of like a guide, and of course at night time it's easier to see somewhere you've already been than it is to try and pick out the tram lines in the field, because like sometimes they the rubbish started to grow in there, and sometimes it was hard to pick out, whereas an area that you've already worked, and I mean with the GPS it was fairly easy anyway. I mean it was kind of sort of as the GPS developed, while I worked there, eventually it became that we didn't even need to do that, because we just literally told the GPS to pick the machine, to pick the implement up when we reached the tram line, and to drop it back down again when we were obviously going back past the tram line. But in the when I first got there, it was a case of you had to physically do it yourself. But as I say, we did eventually move on, and the GPS obviously became much more sophisticated and advanced and different things. But yeah, I was in there. So I got in there one night, and I was going around the headland, and got about halfway down on the trees on the far left, and I was going down there, and sort of my headlights started to gradually pick something out, like ahead of me, and this was before the incident with the cat. So my headlights have, my work lights have kind of, sort of shone something up. Not all that far from the woods, but probably just inside the field side of the tram lines, like not too far. So I'm getting closer, and suddenly, like, it becomes apparent. This this bloke stands up, and I'm thinking, oh yes, that's a bloke. That is. He stands up and pulls his trousers up. And then the girl stands up, and then the blanket gets picked up, the bag gets taken, and they run off into the woods. And I was like, oh my god. I was like, geez, of all the things I thought I would see when working on a farm, I thought that wasn't one of them. So that was quite funny. But and yeah, so that field sort of was memorable for those two things. And there were other fields that, lots of other fields on the farm that we had that, nothing of ever happened in them, sort of thing. It's just a case of rock up, do the work, and sort of rock off. Do you know what I mean? Like, that was. But that field, I tell you, that field, and because it was sort of, although there were some houses around there, it was kind of in the middle of nowhere. It was a very secluded field, and I had heard from the other lads and said, like, you might get courting couples, in that field at night. You might see car lights pull in and, sort of sit on the headland or whatever, or in the gateway, because we had 6 metre margins round, so, there was sort of, unless it was a really wet, period, it was always sort of firm enough to drive on, even in a car, And and as I say, I'd kind of like, I bet that, that's not that. But as I say, that happened that night. But I never did see it anymore. But I know other lads, and because when I went up a few weeks ago, and I said to them, like, I said, that field, I said, at Bourne, they went, yeah, we don't have it no more. And I was like, because it was, as I say, it was part of our hired land, and I went, oh, that's a shame. I said, not that it's a shame, but I said I was gonna ask, is it still, like, caught in paradise? And they said, well, we got rid of it a couple of years ago, and they said, like, we'd often, sort of, people had seen people in there, and it was very funny, and very, very amusing, and at sort of 12:30, 1:15 in the morning, I've been at work since 7, I've been up since 5, something like that just gives you that little sort of boost for the last sort of hour or so, and because like, if I did that, when I was sort of working those hours, I wouldn't go home. So the farm had accommodation that we could stay in on the farm, so we had, like, it was a basic room with a bed, a chair, a TV, and had a shower in it, and a microwave and a kettle. It was very basic, but it was somewhere where you could sort of stay, for a few hours, sleep overnight. And because it also meant that I didn't have to drive home, because from work to where I lived was probably about 25-30 minutes, and so so that would have been getting on for 3 when I'd have got home. By the time I'd have got into bed, that'd be probably getting on 3:15. I'd be up again at 5. So to have that facility on the farm was often a godsend, and there was enough for all of us, because obviously we all at times used it. Although some of the lads that worked on the farm, they lived on the farm permanently, like with their families and that, so it wasn't so bad for them. But and that was eventually what we was going to do. Myself and my partner were going to move on to the farm to live there permanently, and but obviously things happened, and I never quite got there. But it would have been fantastic, because it'd have been 50p a month rent, all my bills paid, so everything I was earning was money for us. As I say, it was a really good company to work for, and we would have been very well off. And yes, I would have had to have done long hours, but as like, 'cause people usually, like, sort of, my brothers used to say, it's against the law, they're not allowed to work you that long. And it's like, well, actually, in farming, you can't do the job if you're not interested. It's not one, like sometimes you can get a job where you just think, I'll just go, I'll do my 8 hours, I'll go home, and all I'm doing is it's a means to an end. I'm earning money. You can't. Farming's not a job that you can do that in. Farming is not a job where you can just think, I'll just do my hours and I'll go home. It doesn't work like that. You're controlled by the weather. You're controlled by factors that you have no control over, and you have to go as and when those factors are in line for you to be able to get on with your work. And so therefore, as I say, it's just not one of those jobs that you could just go and do for 8 hours, because very rarely are you going to get an 8-hour day. Probably in the dead of winter if it's snowing and everything else. I mean, we used to, I remember, I think it was 2013, I think it was. No, it was before then. So maybe 2011, 10, 11, somewhere around there. We had a really, really, really sort of period through December and into January where there was just constant snow on the ground the whole time, and frosts and what have you, and because we couldn't do anything. And I remember getting to work the Monday morning, the snow had been falling heavy on Sunday night, and Adrian, we were all in the office where we used to meet up, and he said, Stafford has told me to tell you that if you boys want to go home and have a few weeks off or a few days off until it clears up, but those few days did turn into a few weeks, he's more than happy for you to. But there wasn't really anything we could do. We had a little bit of maintenance that we could do, but we had maintenance teams, so that was never going to take that long. The equipment was kept in fully working order the whole time. So it wasn't like we had a lot of machines to repair, because we really looked after them. As I've said before, if we didn't, it affected our bonuses, and so everything was really fantastically well maintained and everything. But yeah, anyway, I've gone on for far too long. You're all probably bored to tears if you're still here, so I'm going to end this video here, because I've only got a few breeds to do, and then I'll finish the field anyway. And then I don't know whether the next video will be me collecting the bales, or whether I'll do that off camera and we'll do something else. The soybeans are now one growth stage away from being ready to harvest. We've obviously got the wheat field where we harvested the wheat. We've got to spread the manure in there. And also as well get it ploughed. The soybean field obviously needs the soybeans coming off, and then it needs ploughing and then drilling. So we've got that to do. So we've got a very busy period coming up, because not only is it my soybeans that need all of that work doing too, but it's also the dairy farm where we are at the moment. In one of their grass fields, their soybeans will need harvesting, and their field's much bigger. And as I say, not only that once we get the soybeans off that field, we need to be straight in with the plough, and we need to be ploughing that and getting that ready for wheat. So busy time ahead. Anyway, if you haven't done already, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Also share the videos wherever you feel free. That that really helps as well. That's really great. I'm 4 away currently at the time of recording this from my 450 target for the 1st of July, for the 1st of August, I beg your pardon. So if we can just find it in yourselves to hit that subscribe button, that'd be really magic. And all that's left for me to say is, I've really enjoyed having your company on this episode, and I really look forward to you joining me next time. Bye for now.